Cost 2 less if you cast 2 plus spells this round. Draw 2 other spells. Holy shit! This is the power card! Oh my god. This is it. Caught in the Cold. Give an enemy unit Frostbite and vulnerable this round. Wow, that's really not bad. Instead of drawing the card, you're getting health. I think that the idea behind this card is something you could run in something like an Ash deck. The one that gave vulnerable as like a 1-mana cantrip is pretty good. The one that gave vulnerable as like a 1-mana cantrip. Yeah. But yeah, Caught in the Cold is a decent card. Being able to give like Frostbite and vulnerable is okay. Ultimately, it probably feels a little bit below competitive ability. I like the one that gives vulnerable and then cantrips itself. That one feels quite a bit better. This card's decent. You definitely might see this slotting into like an Ash deck or something. Okay.
Basically,
so the Shared Spoils grants the top 3 units in your deck +1/+1. Plunder draws one of them. So presumably it draws the top card in your deck. In almost any case, it wouldn't matter which card in the top it draws. But this is a Freljord card. It's basically buffing 3 different units that you're getting. And at Plunder, it's drawing a buffed card on top of that. That's quite interesting. So using this without the Plunder is really, really weak. You want to be using this like when it's plundering. After you've dealt damage, you get to draw a unit. So you can do this pre-attack as well pretty easily because it's burst. I think that's fine. So Shared Spoils, it's... Man, could you run this? 3 top units in your deck +1/+1. I wonder if you could use this. It's not... It feels like if you're not getting it with the Plunder, it feels quite weak for a card. Like, quite weak. If you use it with the Plunder, it's not bad. You're basically kind of like cantripping a buff. It's definitely a solid Plunder card, I think. But like the fact that it's terrible if you don't have the Plunder, I think feels like it limits it a little too much. Feels like it limits it just a bit much. But yeah, I think is that all the Freljord cards? I think we were only missing like 2 or 3 Freljord cards. And then now we've got Aurora Borealis, which is a kind of hilarious joke. 7-mana burst, create 2 random Poros from any region and create 2 Poro snacks. So a Poro deck presumably would commit to play this on turn 4, and you can play this very early, right? You can play this very early on new cards. Control F new. Guys, I understand what Control F does. Like, we haven't really skipped any cards yet. I think there's a lot of cards that, like, you guys might be missing. If you create 2 random Poros from any region and 2 Poro snacks, then you basically have the ability to, get, like, a big value engine. It's like, if you play a committal Poro deck, and you play this card on, say, like, turn 4, each Poro snack costs 3 mana. I don't know. It's definitely a card that you would run in a Poro deck. I would expect Poro decks are going to be probably below the point of competitive viability, to the point where you likely won't be finding enough value out of it. It's kind of like a meme card, but in the Poro deck, it's really not horrible. Like, you can get value out of running it in the Poro deck. It is a card that will technically empower the Poro build around. Like, you won't really go for it, but it's alright. Okay, Demacia, the region nobody wants to run. Ranger's Resolve. Burst 1, grant allies tough this round. Oh, I mean, I will say, I don't know if this card really should be good. Jesus Christ. In this metagame that we might be about to see, like, where everybody is running, like, imagine like a flipped fucking... There's so much 1 damage pings. There's so many board-wide 1 damage pings in this meta. It's crazy. Ember Maiden, everything in Bilgewater, like fucking Misfortune flipped, is dealing 1 damage 3 times per attack. Against their flipped Misfortune, this card is hilarious value. In any normal situation, I would look at this card and I would be like, yeah, it's kind of okay, you probably wouldn't run it. In this new set, this card actually might be like hilarious value. Vlad OP. You could use this with Vlad. You could kind of like combo it with Vlad as well. That wouldn't be bad. I don't know if Vlad decks would even prefer this over something like, for example, Bloodsworn Pledge might end up being a bit better than... They're pretty similar in like Vlad decks. Ranger's Resolve is a card that could see play in like an anti-meta capacity. I think that's pretty much it. Concerted Strike. Choose an enemy, 2 allies, strike it. 2 allies strike it. So this is very strange, but you don't get... Do you get to choose the 2 allies? Are they chosen randomly? It doesn't say chosen or random. So do we not really know? What do you guys think? It seems like it would choose. You assume choose. Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest difference here. Yeah. Unless it says random, you should assume you're choosing it. Okay. So 2 allies strike it. It's basically like a Whirling Death that costs more, but you have the double attack. I want to point out The biggest value this has over Whirling Death has literally nothing to do with the 2 versus 1, and everything to do with the fact that this doesn't have to be used during combat on something in combat. That is an incredible limitation of Whirling Death that balances the card, and this card feels pretty powerful given that it loses that. Like, it's great Undying synergy. Wait, it's not good Undying synergy because they don't strike each other, guys. There's no reason to run Undying with this. You just basically fuck shit up. Like, if they go in for a glimpse, you can counter their glimpse. You can't do that with Whirling Strike, right? If they have like an Ezreal, you can kill their Ezreal. You can't often do that with Whirling Strike. That's kind of the most important thing. That's the most important thing with Concerted Strike. That when you go in against an enemy, you can counter things that are operating at fast speed, like outside of combat. Now, 5 mana is pretty expensive. I don't know how commonly this will see play, but it is, yeah, I think it's on the competitive level. Okay, so Genevieve Elm Heart, 6 mana. That's Scout and Challenger. When I'm summoned to give other allies +1/+1 this round. So this is a very powerful Scout card. This is kind of the one card that I think Scout as an archetype really needs. They want a big Scout Challenger so that they can protect their other Scouts on attacks and enable a big setup attack for the double attack Scout. This is like Genevieve Elm Heart is the card that makes the Scout archetype almost single-handedly make sense. Because without like a Scout Challenger that can survive the first attack, you are not getting almost any value out of the ability to like attack with Scouts, because they'll often get blocks for the first attack. You're doubling up on the 1/1. Now, do I think this card is good? Do I think the Scout archetype is good? I am not sure. It'll see experimentation. There's nothing about the Scout archetype that makes me think it's super nuts, unless you're combining it with Elusive and being an absolute degenerate in that way. But this card will make the Scout archetype a lot better. Cytheria. Yeah, Cytheria of Scouts, exactly. Cytheria is another card that was like kind of semi-fulfilling this role, but Genevieve Elm Heart does it maybe almost better. Unyielding Spirit. Grants an ally, I can't take damage or I die. So it's 8 mana burst. It's a very funny card. I like this kind of effect being in the game. And of course it's permanent. Yeah, this is a permanent effect. What are you going to be using this on for value? Because like a lot of people are freaking out about this card, but it's pretty hard to actually get good value out of this. I mean, it definitely is a lot weaker than it looks. That being said, you know, of course there are going to be some crazy build-arounds where you could find a narrow spot to give this value, I think, for sure. Immortal Teemo. Yeah, it's kind of like a BKB, right? Fiora. Yeah, it's decent with Fiora. I mean, there's still going to be like some amount of counters. It's like an 8 mana deny, right? It's like 8 mana is pretty expensive for this kind of effect. It's okay with Fiora. It might be like a little slow, but yeah, it's in Demacia, so it's good just existing in Demacia. So how do you remove an ally with Unyielding Spirit on it? There's the Nautilus spell, and then there's Detain, and then there's Will of Ionia. Are those 3 cards that do it? It can get obliterated, and I believe the Catfish's effect, the new Devourer, the Anglerfish's effect, I believe wasn't obliterate. You can purify it. Are there other cards that take obliterates like that? Strong Arm, Purify, Possession. Yeah, there's a pretty limited range of counters. Probably like the most important one by far is going to be Deny, followed by Purify. I don't think any of the new cards are really big against Unyielding Spirit. It's a really cool card. I like it. I might find some way to build around this. Ultimately, I think that it's kind of like in a region where it sort of is redundant to the point of that kind of balancing it. It kind of looks a bit stronger than it is because it's in a region that has a hard time needing it. Can't deny. Oh, did I say deny? I meant will and then purify. I might have said the word deny though. Yeah, the counter to this is will and then purify. Sorry, I've got 4 mana Ionia spells all jumbled up in my head. But yeah, I mean, it does have like pretty decent counters in that way. Like if you Unyielding Spirit and you get willed, you have basically lost the game. You've committed like a ridiculous amount of mana into something that just gets lost. And that's like, it's hard to win a game after something like that happens. Okay, Eye of the Dragon. Round start, summon a Dragonling if you cast 2+ spells last round. Dragonling. 2/2/1 Ephemeral Lifesteal. 2/2/1 Ephemeral Lifesteal, huh? That's kind of interesting. Okay, so yeah, it's a 2 mana attune, so it's kind of like a 1 mana 1/3 that you can't play on turn 1. And if every round it'll summon a Dragonling if you cast 2+ spells last round. Okay, so yeah, this is kind of a crazy card. It's really good with this like Claws of the Dragon Lee Sin synergy deck. Very, very good card in that kind of deck. Looks really fucking good. like auto in that kind of deck, and will also not only be an auto, but kind of elevate that deck to a higher degree. It's a really, really cool card, and it's super powerful. I wasn't really looking at Lee Sin as an archetype that was hyper competitive. I saw it on the competitive level, but this is the kind of card that makes this archetype much more competitive. I like it. Deep Meditation. Cost 2 less if you cast 2+ spells this round. Draw 2 other spells. Holy shit! This is the power card! Oh my god. This is it. Oh my god. These two cards take this archetype and they make this archetype in like an actual thing. That's so crazy. That's everything this archetype needed. It's like this Lee Sin deck with like, you know, Vi and stuff like that. Maybe Karma. Yeah, I mean, you can play this with Karma if you want. I love this. This is really cool. This is exactly what Lee Sin needed. Like, I was wondering, because he really seemed like he was missing some pieces. This is everything he needed. Yeah. Okay, perfect. And then they've got Horns of the Dragon. They've printed double attack outside of Lucian Senna on a vanilla unit. It's a 6 mana 4/6 double attack. So double attack, if you don't know, because not a lot of people play Lucian, is basically like double strike in Magic. It has quick attack, and then after the quick attack, they also hit each other. Both units hit each other. So it's kind of dealing 8 damage. And it won't take damage against anything that has 4 or less health. If it kills it in the first strike, it doesn't take damage. It's basically a 6 mana 8/6, except it can't deal, well, it does deal 8 to the Nexus because it has double attack. It's kind of like a 6 mana 8/6 with an upside, I guess, right? Double attack is like almost always just an upside to damage because it deals 8 to Nexus. It just means it doesn't get hit by anything with 4 or less, I guess. 6 mana 8/6. It's actually like, God, it's not horrible. Usually this is the kind of card that feels non-competitive. It's only on attack though. Yeah, it's only on the attack phase, I should clarify. So yeah, it's only on like when you're attacking in combat. It's much worse on defense, yeah. So it's a 6 mana 8/6 that's like got a bit of an upside on attack and a downside on defense. I think it's probably a bit too slow for like a competitive viability, but it's an Ionia, and Ionia might have some tricky ways to use this. There could be a deck with Horns of the Dragon and Ghost and buffs, right? Like think about, like, double attack is powerful. It's like Shiraza, right? When you combine it with stuff, you're doubling those buffs. So yeah, you're already in Ionia. So yeah, Horns of the Dragon, Ghost for like elusive, plus some buffs. You could get like an OTK with this deck, like a 1-turn kill. There's a lot of ways to use this for good value. It'll be fun to build around. 6 mana is just like, I think a tiny bit too slow for this. Jeweled Protector. Jeweled is pretty great. Yeah, curve 5 into 6. Jeweled on Horns of the Dragon into like Ghost and like maybe like a turn 6 kill. So Jeweled Protector, Horns, you got 7 attack, that's 14 damage. Ghost, you've got 2 mana left over to find +3 damage. How do you find that +3 damage for the 2 mana you have left over for the turn 6 OTK kill? How do you find that 2 extra damage with 2 mana? Or sorry, 3 damage with 2 mana. Is that possible here? Elixir of Might? Yeah, Elixir of Might or Mark of the Isles. I don't know if you'd want to be in a specific other color, but, or yeah, Elixir of Wrath, I guess it's called. Yeah, Elixir of Wrath, sure. Noxus is probably a decent color to be in. To be perfectly honest, you would also run Shiraza in this deck. I see this as a card that could make a Shiraza deck really good. What Shiraza deck has felt like it's always needed is a secondary target. And this is kind of the perfect secondary target for an all-in buff Shiraza, like cheesy OTK deck. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I will play a lot of that kind of deck. I don't know if it like at the start of this patch, but I will really enjoy that archetype of deck. I'm gonna go nuts on this. I love Horn of the Dragons just existing as a card. Like that's the one deck where this card hits hard. And there will be some other combos with this. It's just a cool combo piece, and it's in the right region for getting enabled as that combo piece, right? Death's Hand. Deal 2 to an enemy unit and 1 to the Nexus. This is interesting. This is a very, very interesting card. I would say that this is a bit worse than Mystic Shot overall. Because you can't do 2 to Nexus, and it does cost 3. And the 3rd point of mana is valuable. However, it's not that much worse than Mystic Shot. And Mystic Shot is like a ridiculous auto-include card. This is basically Mystic Shot for Noxus. And of course it does trigger Plunder. That's the one benefit it has over Mystic Shot. Yeah, it's the Plunder synergy, for sure. This is a good card, dude. Death's Hand is a good card. There's just ways of using this, dude. Plunder, yeah, it does have some synergies. Calling it out broken. This is a very good card. It's like, this might be straight up auto-include. Because like I said, I will say, overall, it's a bit worse than Mystic Shot. But Mystic Shot is auto-include. And of course, yeah. You can generate situations where this can be a bit better than Mystic Shot sometimes. This is a nuts card. Crazy card. Crazy card. Absolutely insane. Holy shit. That's a big buff. I really like that Noxus is getting this card I would feel Noxus actually feels a bit left behind, but Death's Hand single-handedly makes them feel great. I really like that. I really, really like that. Iron Ballista is a 3/4/3 Overwhelm. Probably not great. I don't see that, like, you can combine it with weird buffs and stuff, but a 3/4/3 isn't a great stat line in this game, and you're not really paying that much for Overwhelm. I think a lot of people overrate the idea of a 3/4/3. It is not a valuable stat line in this game. There's a lot that deals 3 damage, and there's not a lot that necessitates 4 attack. It's hard to explain how much a 3/4 would be better than a 4/3. That, like, part of, like, when Callista got buffed to a 4/3 instead of a 4/2, like, part of why I felt like she was still bad was because, like, a 3 mana 4/3 is just, it's not as good of a stat line in this game as it would seem. Yeah, probably not a competitive level card, but yeah, I mean, obviously, Overwhelm is always gonna have Plunder synergy. There's always gonna be better Plunder enablers than Iron Ballista. City Breaker, we've already seen. So Armored Tusk Raider, Overwhelm, I only take damage from enemy units with 5+ power. Whew, man, wow. That's a little interesting. That's a little interesting. I only take damage from enemy units with 5+ power. So it's kind of like, it kind of gets killed all at once. Super tough. So the question is, does this count skills? Does that mean it's immune to stuff like Misfortune's shots? Because Misfortune is a unit with less than 5 power, and the skill is sourced to her. It's not her doing the damage directly, but it's her causing the skill that ends up doing the damage. I would guess, given the mechanics of how this game would work, that it shouldn't protect it from skills generated by units. But on the other hand, that's also like, if that's how that works, then Gangplank's ship is really weird too. Like, do you guys remember, like when we looked at Gangplank's ship, the Dreadway, double all damage dealt by allies. The design of this seems to imply that it does work with skills. But by the rules that the game has set up, it would be weird if it counted skills, because the game doesn't count skills as sourced by that ally. It doesn't tend to anyway. So maybe it's just like there's inconsistent wording going on here. I would guess, just looking at Tusk Raider, I would guess that it doesn't make it immune from that. Auroch Glintthorn, attack, stun all damaged allies. Holy shit! Sorry, allies. I said allies. I meant enemies. Holy fucking shit! Oh my god! What? Are they serious? This card is insane. This card is absolutely insane. So attack declarations are one of the strongest concepts in the game, and a large part of the reason for that is they don't go on the stack. There's no reactivity. When you open attack with this card, they don't have a chance to do anything. No, they don't get a chance to block. They do not get a chance to block here. There's no circle. It's not a skill that goes on the stack. There's no block that happens unless there's some kind of inconsistency. What this card is saying is anything that gets that's damage, pre-damage to an open attack doesn't get to block. That's fucking ridiculous. That's so crazy. That's so crazy. Like, yeah, it's Yasuo synergy. It's like, you don't even need Yasuo with this. It's just, you just end the game with this. It's like level dash. Like, anything that's damaged just doesn't get to block. It's triggering stuns, which can help things that aren't just Yasuo. Ember Maiden is a good synergy point for this card. Like, this makes me almost want to run Death Lotus. Like, Jesus Christ, a 6/6. So this is like, basically, we've had this card in the game. That was a little slept on for a while, but it turned out to be kind of one of the most nuts card in the game. It's called Cytherea the Bold. This card is arguably a better Cytherea the Bold. It's very similar. It's a 6 mana 6/6 that has a nuts attack condition, and the fact that attack goes on, it skips the stack and it's unreactable is part of why it's strong. When you open attack with Cytherea the Bold, they lose the ability to remove any of the units, because Cytherea immediately pushes them out of removal range before they have a chance to do anything from that round. This is the same thing. There's no blocks here. Unless there is a typing snafu, unless there's something, there was an error with this text. This text is saying you don't get to block. 1/1s counter this card. Well, sort of, but anything that's going to damage all units like an Ember Maiden will kill 1/1s. I don't know if I would call this better than Cytherea. This is a very similar card to Cytherea. It's like, it's going to be less reliably good. It's good in some cases, it's bad in others. But yeah, it's like Noxus Cytherea. It is like Noxus Cytherea. That is really crazy. That's really crazy. And they can't nerf this card either because it's like a 6/6/6. It's like, that's part of its flavor, I guess. The Leviathan. Yeah, we've seen that already. Jesus Christ. Noxus is getting some fucking tools, man. Trail of Evidence. Create a random 2-cost card in hand It costs 0 this round. Basically, the only reason to run this is because of Insightful Investigator. It's just like, this is just like a meme card, basically. What's the payoff outside of Insightful Investigator? Pursuit of Perfection, Vi. It's not good enough to be running Vi, I think. Like, it doesn't give you a mana discount, right? You're playing a 2 mana card, and it's costing you 2 mana. The discount isn't here. It's not net discount. You're just getting an extra trigger for the sake of a card. In that way, it's very similar to Flash of Brilliance. It's kind of like new Flash. Flash got reworked to give you expensive cards, and this gives you cheap cards. So it's good for Insightful Investigator, and it will trigger stuff like Lee Sin and Fizz and Vi. But in reality, with those cards, like, the price you pay for having a random 2-cost card, it also could be a unit, so it doesn't always work with double spell triggers like Lee Sin. Like, this is almost certainly not really a competitive level card. Karma, you could see it maybe being like post-Karma finisher, but I don't think it's going to be reliable enough for that. I think Karma's got better options to close out games. I think that for getting like a random card, the upside of a spell trigger is not really worth it. You would need a big build around. I think a Plaza Guardian deck with like Flash of Brilliance, with like the full spell triggers. It wouldn't be something like any of these specific new cards, but it would be like the full spell trigger deck might find a way to make this card useful. That would be like deep in Plaza Guardian. Plaza Guardian is probably, I would actually say this card's hope. If like Vi decks or Vi Lee Sin decks can get to the point where they're putting in Plaza Guardian, then this card becomes good, I think. Because like being able to like cheese out Plaza Guardians earlier and earlier actually does make a really, really big difference. There's kind of a tipping point with these spell decks, which is like as soon as Plaza Guardian, as soon as there's a critical mass of spell cards where you are actually priced in to play Plaza Guardian in your deck, suddenly anything more than that becomes nuts. Anything more than that becomes nuts. Because any extra spell triggers after Plaza Guardian is already priced in to be in your deck becomes -1 mana per Plaza Guardian you draw. And that's crazy at that point. But I don't know if we're there yet. We're very, very close. We're very close. Suit Up. When drawn, cost 2 less this round, set an ally to 4/4. When drawn, cost 2 less this round. So you can definitely imagine like the hilarious dream of like Fizz on turn 1, top deck this on 2, make your Fizz a 4/4. It's kind of like a standalone that's a bit better. It comes out earlier. Set an ally to 4/4. I mean, would you ever want to do this in like the negative direction? Not really. It's like it can dodge certain ranges. It takes a 1/1 and it sort of standalones them. 4/4 Teemo. Yeah, it can be pretty good with something like Teemo. If you run a deck with a lot of like little weenies, this is kind of good. It's like it's a value buff. Like the idea of permanent buffs in this game are pretty rare and should be valued because they're rare. And like Standalone basically exists as that card. Standalone is a card that says, listen man, there's no permanent buffs in this game. I'm an okay card, fucking run me. Suit Up is kind of the same way. But anything that Standalone makes busted, Suit Up will usually be a little bit more limited there. Like you can't really use it on Zed like a Standalone. You can't really buff anything like really big. You can use it on like Teemo. It's funny with a jury rig blocker, I guess. You can make like a 4/4 like flash blocker. That's pretty cool. Von Yip. Yeah, it's cool with Von Yip decks. That's very true. It's big with Von Yip decks. Not only does it give you a way to protect Von Yip, but it gives you a very valuable way of protecting Von Yip against a multi-removal, because if he takes a point of damage, then he can heal even more. And on top of that, it gives you a contingency for having not drawn the Von Yip. That is the most important part. Not only is this card good with the Yip strategy by making the Yip harder to kill when you draw it, but when you don't draw Yip, your entire deck is 1-drops that this deck will be good value on. This is a pretty amazing card for Von Yip decks. Very, very, very amazing. And I can't stress how important that last point is, because a card that's only good when you've drawn Von Yip doesn't make a Von Yip deck better. That deck doesn't really want to only be good when you've drawn Von Yip. You need to diversify. Suit Up is great. Great for Von Yip. And Von Yip is an archetype that's been a lot closer to playability, I think, than most people might think. Like, Von Yip is not that far from competitive playability. So, we will see some experimentations on that kind of deck. Subperissable. When I'm summoned, draw 1. Then if you've played at least 10 other cards with different names, grant me 4/0. So, this is basically a, like, Pursuit of Perfection card. It allows you to effectively get, when it's summoned, if you've played the 10 cards already, it's a 5/5/5 elusive that draws 1, which is, of course, a very valuable card. It's a very, very valuable card at a 5/5/5 elusive that draws 1. 10 other cards. This card is actually good enough to maybe be ran outside of Pursuit of Perfection. I think there's some decks that have like, wow. I think there's some decks that are like Vi or Lee Sin, that kind of deck that's spamming a lot of card names, that might actually be able to just like flip this card on turn 6. Like, not that hard. Maybe it's close. I don't necessarily think that's hugely likely, but that's actually possible. It makes Pursuit decks better. I think one thing about this card is it is considerable without being in Pursuit. 10 cards is not that hard. Yeah, exactly. And when you look at this card, the downside, the worst case scenario is like when you whiff your condition, you need a thing to play on 5. It's still a 5-mana card. That's a body. It's an elusive blocker. It draws 1. It's not the worst thing ever. It's not good, but it's not like an unplayable thing, like Pursuit of Perfection, for example, might be. It has some synergy with draw cards from the enemy too. Yes, because you're playing cards that are basically playing from the enemy deck. So Sub-Perissable is really good with like stuff that says draw a card from the enemy is basically always going to play 2 cards with different names. And you might notice that PNZ already has a matchup point there with Kempunk Pickpocket that's taking cards from the enemy as well. So you could splash this in, especially because that deck archetype is looking for a splash. It's an Allegiance deck almost certainly. So you could maybe consider splashing this in there. That's a little crazy. It's not bad. Chief Mechanist Zevi, when you draw a card, give it fleeting and create a copy of it. So whenever you're drawing a card, you're kind of doubling the value. It's a 6/5/6, which is actually a decent stat line. This is pretty survivable. Wow. This is not bad. This is actually not bad at all. It's like, for a 6-mana card, a lot of these decks that this would be play in would actually be able to like kind of top end this, right? More Yip support. I don't really see this as like that much Yip support. Like you could run this in Ape deck. I don't even think you would want to necessarily. It copies fleeting. Yeah. I'll have to mess around with this card. It's really hard to say. You would want to play this in like slower decks. Jinx Control. This could be good in like a Jinx Control deck, but mostly it's fitting into like kind of Ezreal style decks. It's sort of like Augmented Experimenter in that it gives you card advantage at the condition of not being able to hold your tools for the going off turn. It's a very similar card in that way at 6 mana. Bark Beast. The first time an ally dies, grant me +2/+2. Holy shit! Oh, Jesus Christ. That is a fucking card. Oh my god. You guys thought Keeper Butcher on 2 was good? 7 damage. That's fucking nothing. Bark Beast into Butcher on Keeper. 10 damage. They're dead on 4. What the fuck? This is a very, very specific aggro card. You won't be able to run this in most Shadow Isles lists. And don't get me wrong, Shadow Isles aggro is an archetype that is honestly kind of getting shit on by a vast amount of like 1 damage AoE removal. Literally everybody is getting like 1 damage AoE. Like Spiders might be a little awkward, but damn, Bark Beast might give them a way back in. Sapling Toss. Summon a sapling next round. Fuck. Okay, it's next round. That makes it a little more fair. So when we looked at this card, it was leaked that there was a 1-mana burst card with a sapling on it. I said, if this card summons a sapling, that's fucking broken and like the strongest thing ever. Because a sapling is a 2/1 ephemeral challenger. So it would be basically a better Fleet Feather Tracker in like a lot of ways. It would be a crazy good card. This is interesting. Summon a sapling next round. Wow. That's so weird. You have to set that up. It'll do it at the start of the round. It's a pretty good card overall, I think. It's like a Fleet Feather Tracker, but you can't get the effect on the turn you're playing the tracker. I don't know. Maybe this just isn't really worth running. It's like the opponent will be able to play around it because it'll always be coming down. Yeah, maybe this is actually just too awkward. It's really, really close to the level. The fact that it like time locks it into next round is really awkward. I think this card, yeah, the fact that it comes out next round is so bad for the card. It might be a bit below a competitive level. It's pretty close though. Blighted Caretaker, kill an ally to summon 2 saplings. That actually feels kind of completely insane. Holy shit. Oh my god. Holy fuck. What? Okay. Whoa, Jesus Christ. Okay. Let me break this down. So, killing an ally, you're getting a lot of triggers. Obviously, it's pretty good with like the Maokai game plan. Sapling is a really, really good card. It hits the ephemeral synergy. Better Cask Salesman, it's kind of like a better Cask Salesman. It hits ephemeral synergy, which is like, you would run this in an ephemeral deck. Most importantly, it hits Cursed Keeper synergy. Cursed Keeper has always been a really, really awkward card for the sake that it's really, really hard to pop it on value for turn 3, right? You got the Keeper, the Chronicler, and the Butcher. That's actually a notoriously awkward hand, because what it means is you're often not comfortable playing Butcher until turn 4. If you're attacking on 3, Keeper, Butcher, Caretaker is like you don't play Butcher with a hand anymore, but Caretaker allows you to pop Keeper on 3 for value, and it combines with Bark Beast. Bark Beast 1, Keeper 2, Butcher on 2, or Caretaker on 3, you're good either way. Summon 2 Saplings is good almost no matter what. Like, you'll be able to control the board. Your Escaped Abomination, which would normally be 4 getting trumped out, gets like a hit in through Saplings. It's like you compare this to, you know, something like Cask Salesman. It's a better Cask Salesman in a way. You do have a death trigger that's going to be a bit of a requirement, but it hits on dying decks, it hits ephemeral decks, it hits every point of synergy. It's like, it's such a crazy card. And most importantly, you're like, okay, let's compare this to something like Silverwing Vanguard. Silverwing Vanguard is kind of a shit card, right? But like, this costs 1 less mana and has an extra 2/1 body, right? It's like the interaction, being able to pop your Keeper on 3 is really big. It's really big. This won't be auto include. You won't be able to use it in like every deck. Honestly, you probably couldn't fit it into like a Maokai deck, would be my guess. I don't know. In something like a Keeper deck, it's really crazy. And I think this is low key in like an ephemeral deck too. It probably hits those synergies a lot harder than it hits Maokai. Snapvine, yeah, it can work with Snapvine. It's not really the thing with Snapvine that you're necessarily going to want, but it's all right. Okay, then we've got Neverglade Collector. I'm going to have to move my camera so you guys can read this last card because we can't scroll down more. Okay, let's make it a little more professional than that. Okay, Neverglade Collector. When another ally dies, drain 1 from the enemy nexus. So it's basically a prankster that costs more for more health and does a drain instead of a damage. I think that this card is pretty interesting. It's getting a lot more support, and I think Prankster is sort of an underrated card that hit a lot of potential. Like, it's a surprisingly good card. I didn't actually think Prankster was a very good card. Prankster was the deck I hit rank 1 with, and as soon as don't get me wrong, the deck I hit rank 1 with wasn't a good deck. In fact, if you're trying to climb to rank 1, you're better off playing a weaker deck than like a hyper meta deck just because you want to opt in for surprise value. But ever since then, I've been slotting in Prankster in like experimental slots and like Spiders. I like that card. It's very close to being a good card in Spiders. I think it's largely underrated, and I was one of the people that underrated it. I didn't think Prankster was very good. This card costs 2 more mana, and it has attack, which is not very useful. I want to make sure that's very clear. Because you're paying for the passive ability of this card, its attack point value is almost useless. There's almost no other card that could actually be less valuing to attack, because this unit does not want to hit combat. You're getting 1 health and you're getting drain. I think this is overall a bit worse than Prankster. I think the 2 mana cost is definitely not worth these minor upsides. However, what I will say is that a deck that wants to commit to Prankster does very much benefit from the ability to run more than 3 Pranksters. So yes, turning your Prankster into a 6 of is something that allows you to commit to that deck type more. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll mess around with decks like this. I don't think this card is nuts. But it's pretty solid. And then we've got Terror of the Tides. When you attack, gives enemies -2/-0 this round. See monster allies have fearsome. See monster allies have fearsome. Give enemies -2 attack on attack. See monster ally. What the fuck? Dude! Holy shit. Okay. That's fucking crazy. This is a crazy card. This is a crazy card, dude. This ties it all together. Yeah, sea monsters are... This is sort of nuts. It's like... It's Frenzied Skitterer. It's Cythria. All in one. Sea monster allies have fearsome. I want to point out... A really important aspect of Cythria is because Cythria does not give herself fearsome. She devalues herself. She never gets an attack through because the opponent always has a fearsome blocker that can't get any other value and is generating unique value against the Cythria block. This card doesn't have that problem. This card just gets in. This card is deep. It can get discounted. You can play this on like turn 7 as a big finisher, like a pre-setup finisher. I was saying, yeah, you know, cards like Pack Mentality Cards like Pack Mentality, you know, they're awkward as finishers because they force you to pre-develop into your attack turn. This card doesn't have that. Play this card on 7, discounted by 1 off of the sea monster, and then you're attacking on 8. Open attack on 8. It's the attack that gives the enemies -2. Anything 4 or less attack can't block like any of your units. This card is really crazy. I think Fierce... I will say, I do want to say, I don't know if Sea Monster Archetype will be that good. I was looking... Like, Sea Monsters, they don't have a ton of cards, and they're very high synergy. So you have to run all the Sea Monsters, basically. So for Sea Monsters to be a deck that works, they need several cards, probably about 3 cards, that are really, really, really good. And that's what we have with Terror of the Tides, as well as the 2 other cards we talked about earlier. There's even kind of 3, because there's Lure of the Depths, as well as Zap Sprayfin to get Lure of the Depths, which I'm not even 100% sure you want to do, but I would guess you want to do that. Yeah, that's what I would guess. So, like, these 3 power cards, I'm not saying Sea Monsters is going to be tier 1 as a deck, but these power cards are great, and they're necessary for tier 1s to end up being competitive. So yeah, Sea Monsters, I would put in the competitive category for sure. Have we gone through all the cards? Is that all of it? I think we have covered everything here. I think that's it. Theory crafting time? Oh god, I'm literally just gonna spend all day just deck building. We know all the cards now. We can just deck build. This is crazy. No, but just to cap it off, let's break this down. So they're just gonna show off like the emote features and stuff. Yeah, this is just a recap, basically. Dude, this is actually a pretty fucking hype expansion. There's so much crazy shit in this. There's so much crazy shit in this. There really is. I was a little skeptical. On the first set, when they first started reveals, I saw Quinn, and I was like, stat lines and more rally effects, and Quinn seems kind of lame. There's like, everything else is fucking amazing. I love it. Minor concerns about RNG, but to me, those are, I would say, minor. And, you know, it's possible, you know, there might be some awkward scenarios. For the most part, the cards that are frustrating are not balanced too aggressively, so I don't tend to mind it. But yeah, we'll see. I'll reserve my opinions until we get to play around with it. Healthy amount of power creep, hard agree. Yeah, this is a crazy hype expansion all of a sudden. It really is. Ah, it's a cool emote. yeah, dude. I love the emotes. Holy shit. Tomorrow, boys. It's all happening tomorrow. We've made it this long, dude. This is it. It's finally arrived.